This podcast is sponsored by Tusk, a continuity of business solution for industries that struggle with traditional banking. Check them out on the web at tusk.network. The Rob McNealy program is the nexus of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and entrepreneurship. Now, welcome to the program. Today, we're talking to the co-founders of Raika Tech. They are an entrepreneurial incubator that focuses on developing apps and helping new startups that want to do app-related stuff kind of launch. So I'm real excited that you guys are here today. So I'm not going to remember everybody's names and things, so why don't you go one by one and introduce yourselves for the audience.
All right. Hi, my name is Cynthia Del'Aria, and I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Raika Technologies. And I am a coder in addition to being brilliant at business and starting up.
And I'm Grant Parks, also a co-founder, CTO. We've all worked together off and on for a decade plus, and decided we want to work together on some fun stuff.
Very cool.
And I'm Darrell Brogdon, and everything they said.
Everything they said.
Copy and paste.
The man of many few words. Well, I appreciate you guys coming out today, and I think why I'm interested in talking to you guys and why I think what you guys are doing is interesting is that I've been in the situation that your company solves. And I'm not a developer by nature, I'm not a programmer, but I get all sorts of ideas on how tech can be leveraged to do things. And it's like, where do you get started if you want to develop an app or some kind of e-commerce business, but you're not a coder yourself? So how did you guys get and let's just do this freestyle, whoever wants to answer it, let's answer it. But how did you guys get the idea for this?
Well, so this is actually my fourth startup. So I've built and sold several companies over, 25-year career so far. And these guys were tired of working for other people and watching them make money, and, making a six-figure salary is great. And we're all, thrilled about that, but there's always that, there could be more. And so these guys said, we want to work for ourselves. We want to pick our projects. We want to gain that, what am I trying to say? We want the benefit of what we're doing, but we don't know how to run a business. And so I said, well, that's funny because
that's okay. Most people don't know how to run a business. So
most people don't. That's true.
That's okay.
And I said, well, that's really funny because for the last few years, I've had this idea of helping people use my knowledge that I've gained over, 25 years to learn how to start up and not make all the mistakes that I had to make. I mean, there's some things that companies and people have to go through. There's that, what they call it, paying your dues. Like, that does exist, but I think we can get there a lot easier and a lot quicker and with a lot less time and money invested if you have somebody kind of holding your hand and getting you to the place where, I've gotten to several times now, rather than doing it on your own and banging your head against every wall that's going to pop up in your face.
Well, I think that's a very interesting part. I think, back in the day when I was really looking at studies around, research around entrepreneurship, is that on average for someone to get to unicorn status or really successful entrepreneurial status, they've actually failed, between 5 and 7 times. Oh, yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of people can't get through the failures and they never reach that pinnacle because either they give up or their failures too catastrophic. And I think out of that term, fail fast comes through, because if you fail quickly and you know when to fail, you can minimize the economic damage and get back up to speed. I also know, as someone who's failed a bunch of times, having kids that come from entrepreneurial families themselves tend to do much better because they shortcut some of those failures. And I think for that exact reason, right? And so what I see is I like to go out and tell people now, and I even do this now, I'm a serial entrepreneur, is that I try to find advisors and mentors from day one. That's one of the first things I do now. Especially if I'm going into an industry that I don't understand or don't have any experience with.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Actually, it's really interesting. We are constantly refining what we call our ideal client. Generally, we find that people who have owned some kind of a business before are very, very good clients for the startup program because they have that stick-to-itiveness. They understand that there's going to be those things that they're going to have to push through. There's going to be work that's going to have to be done. It's harder work than your normal, like everyday 9 to 5. And it's inconvenient because it shows up at the worst times in your life most of the time.
Pretty much.
Yeah. My 10-year-old has a soccer game today, and oh man, I've got 4 customer validation, product validation interviews scheduled. I got to do this thing. Like
But you see it in their reactions when you talk to them and when you present them with things that are part of the process. And the people that aren't like that, their eyes get real big and they're like, oh shoot, I have to go out and interview my clients, or I have to go do this and I have to do that, and it's going to take that much. And then the people who have started businesses or run businesses before look at you like, okay. And they're writing it down like, okay, this is the next step.
Yep.
Well, I think part of that is, there's I think a cultural difference between the mindsets of entrepreneurs and employees.
Yes.
That's it. Like you hear this all the time, someone says, oh, I could never work that much or work that hard. And I'm like, okay, you're probably better off not being an entrepreneur because you're not committed. Or, oh, I got this thing and I only do this on Sundays, or I only do that on, Saturdays, or, or it's 5 o'clock. I got things to do that are personal, and yeah, those people aren't committed. And I always joke around is that, entrepreneurs are harder workers, and employees hate when you say that.
Yeah.
But it's a fact. I mean, and it's not only that you're going to put in more hours, right?
Yeah.
But you think about it all the time. And to me, it's not just the act of coding or trying to set up a sales appointment or things like that, but it's really about the fact that you're mentally thinking and problem solving 24/7.
Yes.
And I think that's why entrepreneurs, even if they're in a corporation, people that are entrepreneurial minded, they're better performers.
Yes.
Is because of that energy that they're putting into it.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And it's interesting because so there's really 2 outcomes that happen in our startup program. One is we do a pretty good job of weeding out people who aren't going to finish. So we mostly don't see that anymore. So there's 2 people that are left. There's the people who finish and they go, okay, I've learned what I need to learn. I think there's a good ROI. I think there's a great opportunity here for a real business. I like doing this. I enjoy having the conversations about it all the time. And that's great. The other people usually look at me and they go, oh my God, how do you do this every day? This is so hard. Like, I have missed like half my life over the last 3 months that I've been doing this. And I'm like, yes. And it only costs you a little bit of money and a little bit of time to get to that point. You didn't go spend $200,000 building software and then spend 5 years wondering why it's not working out. And they're really happy that they got there fast. It's like you said, fail fast. Well, let's figure out that I'm not good at this fast, or I don't like it fast, because then I don't waste my time and money, and I get to go spend my time and my energy finding something that I really do like doing.
Well, I mean, and it goes into the diligence process too, right? Like, being an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of pieces, and I mean, even with our crypto project, I mean, we have a team of 9 developers, and it's fun, but developers most of the time are not usually the best entrepreneurs, because they're thinking of a product and features, and that's it. And the creation of products and features, which is very, very important.
Yes.
But there still has to be a business model. There still has to be someone that sells those products or features, or finds the opportunity to build something that solves a problem with technology. And I think that's where a lot of people, the build it and they will come mindset.
Right.
It's a myth, by the way.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
That's one of the biggest myths that we dispel constantly is the thinking that you're going to build an app and stick it in the app store and you're going to be a millionaire That's crazy. It's
Nope.
it's like thinking that you're going to build a widget, drop it in a bin in an Amazon warehouse, and everybody's going to find it and buy it. There's 3.5 million apps on the App Store alone. It more than doubles when you add in the Google Play Store. How are they going to find you? You know, it's still a marketing and a sales problem. And if you're not solving the problem that people need solved in a way that they can connect with how you're solving it, there's no reason to spend money building that and putting it out, because it's not going to sell, you know?
I couldn't disagree with you, and I couldn't disagree with that at all. I think that's the problem. I worked with a developer on a project about a year ago, and I was giving him advice. It was not our project, but he was working on something, and he was just a developer, and he kept telling me, he told us he was the smartest guy in the room, literally. So that tells you something. But and I'm like, okay, because he couldn't believe all the stupid people was around. I'm like, I agree about stupid people, but I'm not one of them. But here you go. And he's like, oh, I'm going to launch this app. And he launched his app, and I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. What's your marketing budget? What's your marketing plan? How are you getting it out? And it's funny, but he made the widget, interface was horrible, and he had no marketing. And in fact, he launched at the wrong market on top of that, and then he failed. And then he got mad at me. It was kind of funny, because I'm like, well, you could do this and this. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, I'm like, I don't think anybody's going to use your thing then. But I think that's part of the problem out there, right? It's like, hey, the guys, and a lot of developers are on that scale anyway, right? A little bit of an outlier on that spectrum, but he just did this. He came up with, he had an interesting idea. It needed polishing, but it also needed to be presented to people in a way that made sense for them. And a lot of people don't try to put themselves in other people's shoes. I would look at some of the open source projects out there, like Linux desktop, and you want to talk about, even crypto. I say a lot of the crypto projects fall into the same whole build it and they will come. And you know what? I love the concept of Linux, and I have a laptop with Linux on it. So I'm not anti-Linux or open source. But the fact is, Linux never got traction in the desktop space at all. And by accident, essentially got, Apache became successful in the web server space. But the main problem is, if you go talk to any of those developers that are on that Linux project or a lot of the crypto projects, it's not what problem does this open source project solve. It's, even though it's more complicated and clunky and it's really kludgy, and you say, and they're like, well, this is going to be, the Microsoft killer or whatever. And you're like, no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. And the reason being is, it's like, it's the mindset, like it's a usability problem is the main reason. It's so complicated to do things in those things, but the developers of them, like, it comes from this almost hubris, I think, that, well, you need to be smart to use our app or a project or a software XYZ. And I'm like, okay, well, people aren't that smart. And you're not.
They don't want to take the time to figure out your thing. They
Well,
want the problem solved.
Well, if you're going to have a project that needs a learning curve, right, Cynthia, it's like, tell me the benefit of that learning curve.
Yes.
What do I get for going through this new process?
Yes, and it better be good on the other side.
Well, it's got to be superb, and it's amazing, how much stuff you see out there. So typically you find a client, like, your ideal client is someone who's already got a little bit of experience in business. They actually have identified a market and an opportunity to create a solution for somebody. What's the next step with working with you guys?
Well, we typically start with, they may or may not have identified their market, and sometimes we will actually dive in on that part with them, because they think they know who they're solving a problem for because of their own experience, but there actually may be a bigger market in a different direction.
You've got to get them to put themselves in different shoes, because they've been thinking about this from mostly one perspective. While it's been swimming around in their head, and now that we're getting it out on paper and we're deciding how this is going to work, we have to figure out what, again, what the killer features are, what are the compelling needs for this, and then who are those people that this is going to serve, and let's identify them and define them as precisely as we can, at least that, just going through the exercise of the personas with them, and yeah, it's fun even doing that, because you see them kind of, they're having new ideas just as you go through that process.
Well, I think that's important too, like brainstorming. And so to me, that's what advisors and mentors do, right? They're like, okay, I think I have this idea and I think it's got potential. Who do you bounce that idea off of? And a lot of, and just like as, any other entrepreneur, if you don't have a lot of entrepreneurial friends that you can trust and bounce ideas, a lot of people just are struggling with that. They don't know how to test their idea. So it sounds like you kind of bring kind of like a mentoring role to the table as well.
Absolutely. And like, we help them figure out who are your user personas, between 2 and 4 get identified depending on what kind of app we're talking about and who the potential audiences are. And then we help them do a lot of market research, and we have them build a list of at least 100 people. We like to do 150 to 200 customer and product validation interviews with people.
Wow.
And because the people who come to us are typically more knowledgeable in the industry that they're talking, that their idea exists in than we are, we say you need to go into your world and start identifying 100, 150, 200 people that you could go to and talk to them about the problem, demo with a prototype. So that's part of our program, is we build a functional prototype. It's self-contained, doesn't require a server or anything like that. And demo that and work with those people to figure out, are you solving their problem? Is it a problem they have? And then from the way we design the interviews, we can tease out pricing, usage, like that kind of stuff. And people always say, well, when do we ask them how much they would pay for it? And I'm like, you can't really ask that direct of a question about price, because people always want stuff to be free. So if you ask them, they'll say it should be free. So we design questions that get us to how much monetary value people would find in whatever we're doing, through other means. And so to your point, it's all about mentorship through the process and saying, okay, now we've discovered this, here's the next step that you're going to have to do. And while we could go do that for people, having them be in the process and having them go through these steps and be executing is giving them that startup flavor. And they're realizing, 2 or 3 months in, they're like, all I do now is talk about my idea. And it's like, yeah, that's what it takes to have a successful business.
Well, I think that's important though, right? And especially if, say, someone may not have had previous sales experience or maybe never actually done a startup before, getting out there and being able to, in a concise way, present your solution to potential customers is pretty vital, and I know a lot of guys, and especially developers, I'm going to pick on you dev guys, right? But they hate sales, they hate marketing, and they hate that business development process. And I recently was mentoring a friend of mine who I've known, 20 years, and he's thinking about doing a startup. He is an employee kind of guy, right? So he's got a really big, awesome idea. And I'm like, if I wasn't working on my own projects right now, I would actually probably work with him, because I think it's a pretty fantastic idea. But I'm trying to help him. Try to help him get his boots off, start bootstrapping and get it off the ground. And he detests, he's got I would almost say he's just kind of not confident in his sales abilities, and he really doesn't want to overcome that. And I laid it out for him. I said, look, even if you're, going to be a hands-on entrepreneur, which I would say you should be, you still have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to present your ideas to people. A lot of people say that the CEO should be the best salesperson for the company, right? I don't necessarily agree with that 100%. I think a good CEO is a decision maker, but they should be very comfortable selling their product, even if they're not the biggest sales closer. You know what I'm saying? But in his case, he didn't want to do that part. And I said, look, sales isn't, to me at least, and I don't consider myself a sales guy, though I've done a lot of sales, but to me, I said, look, even if you're not trying to go out and sell this concept to people from the sake of finding customers, But in this early bootstrapping stage, what you need to be doing is selling your idea and passion to recruit other team members and advisors to your project. And that still is a form of sales.
Yes. And actually, one of our most successful incubator clients right now is a guy I wouldn't really call him a sales guy, but he's good at talking about his idea, and he loves talking about his idea. And that has translated to, over the last 2.5 years, he's got 17 people working on his team for equity.
Wow.
He's not paying them a dime right now. They're getting equity. And they're all invested in the idea, and they're all like engaged in it, and they all do really fantastic work because he's leading the team. And they're all like, yes, I can follow that. I can be part of that. That's really exciting to me. You know?
And that's how we've structured Tusk. Our team is everybody, no one's getting paid, nada, but everybody, you know, has some shareholder tokens and hoping for the upside. But I still view it, even though it's a decentralized crypto project, I still view it as an actual startup. And that's my mindset. It's like, we still got to solve a problem for people. We still have to have, you know, the ability to sell and get the word out and get people using what we're doing. So I think that's great. And, you know, I think that as a service, I don't know anybody who else is doing it quite like that. So say I'm an entrepreneur, I want to be a customer, I have an idea. You know, what does it cost to go through this program, or what does it cost in terms of how do I get involved with you guys?
Yep. So we have a couple of options. There's sort of an entry-level introductory analysis option where we can get on the phone with you for an hour, hour and a half, brain dump your idea. We make notes, we make suggestions, and we'll go do some high-level market research, market validation, some ROI potential, and we deliver a 3 to 5 page report about what we think. And from that, usually we can come up with an estimate for our startup program, which is the more in-depth. It's usually 3 to 6 months. The cost depends on the complexity of the idea. The base price is $5,000. We don't go more than $10,000. So usually people fall in that $5,000 to $7,500 range most of the time, unless you just have a really super complex idea where the prototype needs to be more in-depth. And you can find out more information at gotanapidea.com. And we have blogs, you know, videos and blog posts and all kinds of content around our philosophies and how we run our programs and the questions that we're going to ask and things for you to think about that can kind of help you get started and see, you know, dispel some myths for yourself. And figure out if this is really something that you want to jump in with both feet.
So appreciate you being honest with the money. It's funny, you know, a lot of people they're like, well, just call us and we'll give you an estimate on the phone. And that's like some weird high pressure, like sales pitch. But what you're telling me, that's actually not a lot of money, you know, and why I think what you're doing is important is if I got a business idea, I don't have to go hire and come up with a complicated bunch of, you know, I don't have to set up a company yet. I don't have to go do a whole bunch of different things and hire employees and do all sorts of expensive legal work, which costs thousands anyway. I mean, if you're, you know, operating agreements and all that, that stuff isn't cheap, right? That's all part of that startup cost thing. But I can go to you guys with my idea, and for 5 to 10 grand, which is a minimal investment, you guys will help an entrepreneur, help a company try to figure out and do their due diligence and their market research. And to me,
that price also includes a prototype that you can show investors.
Yes.
And so to me, that's important, and that's not a lot of money. That's a bargain. And I don't know anybody else that's doing that in the field right now. And so I think if people actually had a number in their head, they're like, oh, I can at least have, you know, I can invest a little bit of time and money, and I'll know whether it's a good opportunity or not. And that's not going to cost me that much money. And I can tell you, if I would rather go to you guys and go through this process instead of spending, you know, and spend 5-10 grand, figure out if my idea sucks or not. Guess what? Most ideas suck. So, but I don't mean that in a bad way though. It's good to know something sucks, right? Because the alternative is just bull forward and fail and, you know, mortgage your house and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to realize your idea sucks, right?
Yeah.
And to me, this is a really small investment. What?
New Coke. That's what they did.
New Coke, yeah, exactly. You know, it's like Crystal Pepsi. What the hell's that all about? It's like it's like the Zima of soft drinks. I like Zima, but back in the day, back when I was a 22-year-old girl in college, I really liked Zima. But all right, we're getting off track here. So all right, so what do we do? So what do we do next though? So like so I'm your customer. I go through your program and it's a good idea.
Yeah.
What do I do then? What do you do then?
A couple of options. So between 3 and 5 times a year, we pick projects that we invest in as an equity partner, where depending on, the scope and the scale and everything of your project, we come up with either a revenue share agreement or a stock equity agreement, where Raika actually becomes your software developer. And we help you find investors. We build your software to MVP status. We get you out there in the market selling and potentially finding investment, whatever you're looking, however the business needs to be organized. And we help you complete those steps as an equity partner. The other option is, because we do so few of those a year, there are a lot of really great ideas that people are really excited about. We can also be a development partner and for cash, help you build those out. Or if you're not in our area or you want to partner with somebody else, we can help vet and recommend other app development companies for you as well.
And we pass on all that research and information.
Absolutely. You've got your prototype. We validated that the features are the right things to be building. So if you have to spend $100,000 or $150,000, that you're going to be building the thing that your customers actually want.
And the prototype that we give you is actually something you can build your app on. It's not like you got to take that prototype and throw it away and then start from scratch.
Exactly.
So it's not just a mock-up. It's actually something so you're building it out in a framework that can be added onto it and grow and things like that.
Yes.
Well, that's really great. And I think that's important too, because, there's a lot of great ideas out there. And though, there's a lot of entrepreneurs like, I don't want to give up equity of my non-existent, non-market cap company, but, I don't want to pay any money. But on the other hand,
I don't tell you anything.
Yeah.
but here's the thing, and as I've gotten older and I've had some success in business and working on some other ones, and I'm not greedy anymore. It's like, I realize I would rather have a little chunk of something that's really awesome than a big chunk of something that doesn't exist, or it just failed. And to me, I have also found that people tend to work harder when they have skin in the game. And people, you can pay a developer to build something, but the minute those checks stop rolling and you got a bug to fix or something like that, they're like, well, I'll get to it in a month, right? And whereas an equity partner will like, oh yeah, this is going to affect our business, not your business.
Yes.
And I think I'd rather have a team on board like that and partner with someone myself, especially if I'm a newer entrepreneur anyway. I think there's a lot of benefits to working with a seasoned and veteran team that maybe I couldn't afford as a startup to hire.
Yeah, exactly. And that really is the thing, is in order to get an executive team, a development team, what you get when you work with us, you're talking at least $500,000 a year in salaries and bonusing and all that kind of stuff minimum.
Right.
And so for us to come on board, not only can we help you get to a place where you have something that's viable in the market, investors like us, because we have history and we've done this before and we can execute and we have a track record of that. And we also have a lot of investors who are interested in projects that we bring to them because they know us. So there's lots of different aspects of working with us that make it that much richer and that much more like yummy, for lack of a better word.
Technical yummy. Hey, you know what? I like that. Technical yummy. That should be like a hashtag for you guys now. Technical yummy. I'm working on that. You're doing that. We need a shirt.
I'm writing it down.
Technical yummy.
I love
All right,
it.
maybe it might work in Boulder. I don't know. And so you guys are based in the Denver area, right? That's where you guys are located. So you said earlier that, you'll work with teams anywhere but some people would want to work face to face kind of thing, but you don't mind working with people in different geographic locations.
No, I mean, we have a client who's down in New Zealand. We've worked with people on the East Coast. Technology is great. I mean, it lets us be anywhere, almost immediately. So we can do what we do from wherever.
That's awesome. So,
which is our retirement plan, right? Like doing what we do from a beach somewhere someday.
I hear you. I live in the desert, so here in Utah, so we don't really have beaches. That's the one thing I don't like about Utah. There's no beach. I'm from Michigan originally. Michigan has lots of beaches. I like the beach. I like the desert too, but is what it is. So guys, I really do appreciate you guys coming on today. So where can people find out more?
Gotanapidea.com.
That's pretty clever. I still like technical yummy. Oh boy, this isn't going away. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to the Rob McNealy program. Make sure you check us out on the web at robmcnealy.com and subscribe to our podcast at YouTube, iTunes, and on the Google Play Store.